Howdy and welcome back. This is Ethelred, the worst Civ player on YouTube. Now, this is a really big episode. Lot happens in it. First off, a couple of things. I've turned off the hex grid and the yield icons. I no longer need them at this stage in the game. Second thing is that I found the audio setting which governs the noise in the cities, so that won't be so bad anymore. The next thing is that this episode will run until the declaration of war for World War I. So it's just 12 years, but it's a massive amount of history to cover. So if you watch the series, but you just hate the history and you wish you could just watch clicking through and actual playing of the game, then this probably isn't going to be your favorite episode. But if you really like the history, and you don't mind staring at a city screen while we talk about history, then this will be a great one. So, first off, I'm going to say 1903, which is 1 year from now, there is a Serbian coup which brings a new leader to power in Serbia, which is a Russophile, and that dramatically improves relations between Serbia and Russia. Now, the counterweight in the region to Russia was Austria-Hungary. They were the eternal foe of Russia at this point in time, and therefore if Serbia is improving its relations with Russia, it's at the expense of its relations with Austria-Hungary. Alright, so with that said, we're also going to talk about Marx for a minute, because although Marx is a 19th century fellow, everything that he theorized and postulated and wrote really leads to a moment which happens in this episode of Russia. So I did maybe a whole 15 minutes of research into Marxism. So forgive me if you're a big Marxist and I get this a little bit wrong. In fact, correct me, please. So Marx argued that humans had possessed both themselves and their future self, their possible self. And when somebody realized that this duality existed, that was the beginning of their development as a person. It allowed the current person to take the possible self as an object and mold it through effort. The ability of an individual to affect the real world and therefore his future self was described as labor power. Labor power meant the acting of a person upon the physical means of production, so literally crops, fields, factories, etc. And the development of self should not be taken away from one's own ownership. So the way that you shape your future self is by interacting upon the environment in which you exist, right? So improving your farm, improving your house, etc. And the tools which you need in order to do that, the ownership, the control of that, the control of your wheelbarrow, of your wagon, of your house, of your whatever tools you need in order to perform work to impact your life should not be out of your control because you are affecting yourself with them. What else? Let's see. So, it was therefore required that the common man seize control of the means of production and work it to their own benefit. And writ large, abstractly speaking, that means that common man needs to use the means of production to their own benefit and therefore their society's benefit. Capitalism, on the other hand, is the surrender of the means of production to a bourgeoisie. So you don't own the things that you're working. You don't own the mill in which you work. That's owned by, some guy who you never see. He owns it. And you just work there. And what you produce, you don't own it. It doesn't impact your life. It goes taken away from you and it's shipped someplace else. So Marx believed that if one didn't own the means of production, then your labor didn't go to yourself. You could no longer develop yourself. You could no longer develop your own society. And that your culture becomes a slave to the culture that the capitalist wants to impose on you. So the person who owns the capital, right? The person who owns the mill, whatever culture that they want to impose upon you as the laborer, they're free to do so because they control your future self. They control the means of production. So if you get a culture imposed upon you by a capitalist, then the capitalist has captured and trapped your mind, and you are enslaved into an ontology of the capitalist choosing. Religion, Marx argued, did the exact same thing, which actually answers the question to me. I always wondered why communist states were atheist, because Marx went on to say, this is a direct quote, "Religious suffering is, at one and the same time, the expression of real suffering and a protest against real suffering. Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world, and the soul of soulless conditions. It is the opium of the people. The abolition of religion as the illusory happiness of the people is the demand for the real happiness. To call on them to give up their illusions about their condition is to call on them to give up a condition which requires illusions." So this means that the common man, if he's just getting, the aspirin, his daily aspirin, religion is his daily aspirin, it makes you feel better when all other circumstances conspire against you. And that if you are brave enough to throw off that aspirin, then you will work to improve the real circumstances of your life so that you become happier in the materialistic world. So it's a very materialistic ideology. All of the suppression of religion and the capitalist culture is a creation of the forces of economy. Original man was, he said, freely creative with their own labor. So we're talking, early man back in Babylon and all that stuff. He molded his own life as he wanted, but the modern economy was driven by capitalism, which enslaved all of mankind. But Marx was an optimist, I guess. He predicted that capitalism, like serfdom before it, was a temporary state, and eventually the strength of the people would grow so great that they would throw off their controlling class, and the bourgeoisie would be broken, and socialism would take root. Wow. So that's a lot to say. I'm so sorry that you just had to stare at a screen while I said that all. That was Marxism. Marx was actually an Austrian. He spent the last of his years living in France and England. He wasn't Russian, but his thoughts impact what happens here in Russia in a big way, and reasonably so, because the serfs have been crushed by a ruling autocracy for hundreds of years. And they just got emancipated, and they've been put into this situation where they no longer... Let me give you a little window into the life of the serf right now, because that's also critically important. They're not anymore living and working on their farm with their family and their extended family and the friends that they've had their entire life, where the farm is owned by some boyar that they never see. They never met the boyar. They never will meet the boyar. The boyar exists in some faraway place. Whereas now it's the Industrial Revolution. Factories are being created in cities, and these serfs now are no longer serfs. They're a working class, and they're going through this huge cultural transition from serfdom on a farm to now they have to go into the city in order to make money. So they go into the city, they work in a factory, this new factory never existed before, and the person who's ordering them around is not some boyar 1,000 miles away that they'll never see. It's their asshole boss they have to see every single day. And these bosses, there's no employment law, there's no labor law. These bosses are working these people to death. They're working on average 15 hours a day in very unsafe conditions. So they actually were a lot happier in their previous lives, and they see what's happened to them in the last couple of decades is horrible. I mean, emancipation, my ass. I went from, working with my family in a field, having control over my daily life, to living in some cold-choked industrial building where I'm getting ordered around by Bob, and Bob's an asshole, and Bob's always yelling at me and beating me, and I have to work 15 hours in this hellhole. This place sucks. So they were pissed. The common man was pissed. That's why they tried to assassinate. So now I understand better. That's why they tried to why they did assassinate Tsar Alexander II, and that's why they start trying to assassinate Tsar Alexander III. That they tried in the last episode. They tried the bomb in the train. So that's why these people are so mad. So you have in Russia, the vast majority of everyone is a culture which is furious with the ruling class. Because the ruling class, these people who are running these factories, the owners of capital, the capitalists, are enriching themselves on the backs of the working class. And this is all a brand new development. It's a culture shock. All right, so back to this game. Now, also in this episode, we are going to turn our, we are going to commit, I know I've said this a couple times before, 100% to the immediate victory of this game via science. I'm going to commit to having this thing won in 48 years, by 1950. So the biggest threat that I have is Brazil. And Brazil is, they're trying for a culture win. So let's find them and see where they are with this. They are influential with two cultures, Portugal and Spain. As far as I am concerned, they are popular with me. They are 71% influential over me, and that's rising. I've got 57 turns until they beat me. Well, they beat me, all right? But they haven't won the game. They have to become influential with everyone. And that means that I've got, 100 turns, 130 turns. What's the longest one here? 57 turns, 389. That's the Aztecs. So, but these dynamics could change. So I need to make sure that the dynamics do not shift in Brazil's favor. And furthermore, the key people here that I need to keep out of their sphere of influence is Carthage, China. It says the percentages right here. So, really, I think it's China and Egypt. And the Aztecs and the Celts. China, Egypt, the Aztecs, and the Celts. These are the people I need to keep out of the sphere of control of Brazil. So let's look at their ideologies, because shared ideology is a big one. Brazil is freedom. I already forgot who I said. Aztecs and Celts, China and Egypt. All right, so China is freedom, shared ideology. Aztecs is autocracy, so they will hold out longer than China will. I think it was Egypt and the Celts. The Celts are order, so they'll hold out. And Egypt is order, so they will also hold out. So we're looking at some possible holdouts based on ideology. All right, so even though I'm freedom, the last thing I want to see is these people switch to freedom. Let's look at the tenets. What do we already have in tenets? We have a reduction of research cost. We have increase of great writers and a decrease of great scientists. So actually a lot of tenets which I don't like. Really, I don't like any of these tenets. I think they all suck. So I pretty much ate them all. Oh, and what's on the docket? World religion, Islam, and my repeal of the scholars in residence. So shared religion is a big one. So I don't want the religion spread 25% of they can only be based on So shared religion would be bad. Islam is prevalent throughout Africa. So Carthage and Egypt are both Islamic. What about Brazil? Brazil is atheist. So not a shared religion. So I don't care right now, really, and I don't think that in the time left in the game that it's going to change. I don't care if Islam becomes the world religion. Instead, I kind of wish that I had maybe picked some other thing to repeal, like this negative 33% the great scientist generation. But it is what it is. It's already done. So this means that my primary defensive goals are that I need to keep the ideologies the way that they are, which means that Brazil needs to stay a different ideology from Egypt and the Celts and China and the Aztecs. Well, from the Aztecs. So, okay. And because Brazil is winning the culture war, they're going to be exerting an outsized influence on these other three guys. So I need to prop up these guys in their ideologies, which are different ideologies from mine, but it doesn't matter. Therefore, my own, whether or not I am at this point culturally independent of Brazil is no longer a variable, because in fact I don't need that at all. The holdouts here are not me, and what am I to gain from resisting freedom? I'm freedom. The ideology which is exporting its influence on me is freedom. I don't stand to gain anything by resisting it. Therefore, I no longer need to focus on things like museums. Instead, I don't know. I guess I'll build a castle. Alright. And my happiness is good, and my income is good, and there are barbarians, like always. Eternal barbarians. Let's just move these guys to the places where barbs usually come from. Okay. Just stay there. With that done, we, in the last episode, shifted a lot of our trade routes to Moscow. We still have some that are not going to Moscow. I guess that this is an okay balance. I may monitor this balance and shift some of these around. We also locked growth in almost all of our cities, and I think that is fine. We need to see if there's anything we can do to increase our science output. We're not going to change Moscow or Poltavka, that's for sure. Srubna, I don't really need on production focus anymore. Science focus, though, doesn't help anything. And all of these guys are already being worked, so I can't get any more science out of any of that. So, Samaria, don't need a museum anymore. We don't need production focus. We really need science focus, but there's no science to get out of any of these tiles. I guess I could unlock, well, but I'm building a research lab. I think I should finish building the research lab. Andronovo, on the other hand, I think I could probably, let's see here, 4 spare. I could unlock, like, this one. I don't care about, I don't really too much care about my production. Yeah. So that frees up some food to put specialists on these guys. And I think that probably increased my science. I should monitor that more carefully next time I do this. So now let's go to Tamatarcha. We will not need the Opera House. We will need more science. We're at 100 science right now. We've got 6 food coming in. And I don't really care about production here either. But we don't have any production heavy tiles in Tamatarcha. We've got some really balanced tiles. This one sucks. Oh, but we've got no better place to work that guy. So, in fact... There. Alright, well then there's that. Okay, next turn. So, wow, that was much staring at an empty screen, and I'm so sorry about that. What is our faith working on? Let's take a look at that. I want to make sure that I want to align my... I want to make sure I'm on the right trajectory, kind of like a spaceship coming back from the moon. I want to make sure it's at the right trajectory for a landing on the Earth. I want to bring this spaceship down on an ocean where we win. And we're working on purchasing mosques, which is fine. So, barbs. Nuts, bro. That's a lot of barbs. Is there anybody else I can bring to bear on this? Oh yeah, this guy. And we have killed a Carthaginian spy. Let us take a look at our... Where are we schmoozing? Beijing and Tenochtitlan. I think that's good. I think that's fine. And otherwise we're doing counterintelligence in basically our 3 primary cities. Sure. Next. And this will bring us to 19... I forget... Oh, damn it. Click the wrong stinking button. Oh, well. It's not the biggest deal in the world. Certainly didn't want that to happen. If anything, I would like to foster decent relations as much as possible. Alright, so 1904. Let's spend just a moment talking about Vladimir Lenin. So at this time, Lenin is a young man living in Sweden, and he's running a Marxist newspaper, having been influenced by the ideas of Marx. Let's see, deal strengthen our nations. I agree, let's make it an even deal. Thank you, Monty, I appreciate that. So, Lenin believed that all of mankind would eventually reach a state of classlessness. So like Marx believed that eventually the common man would throw off the capitalist rulers and just bring this out here to monitor this area for barbs. Kind of an uncomfortable situation here. I think I'll bring my general up to help deal with this situation here. With barbs. That's pathetic. Anyway, yeah, he believed that eventually mankind would organize into a classless, stateless condition. Killed a Japanese spy. Cape Town looks elsewhere. Korea and Brazil are now friends, and Arabia's denounced Spain. Anyway, he also believed that... so his state of a utopian, classless society where everyone was equals, he popularized under the quote, from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. This utopia he called communism. He also believed that one could not jump from the current working class conditions in Russia to communism directly. He thought instead that he would need to make Russia pass through a socialist state of existence. Socialism he defined as a society where the means of production were socially owned. So the means of production are not owned by an individual, but rather they're owned by the abstract society. Therefore, since the state is society writ large, that means that everything would belong to the state, and everybody would be employed by the state, and the state would see to it that all things would be distributed as needed via central control. The state would make sure that everybody got what they needed. So this was a deviation at the time from mainstream Marxism, which believed that rather than a strong central state, rather that, and this was European Marxism, that they needed a democratically elected parliament which would represent the proletariat. And by that proxy, the proletariat would have control of the means of production via their elected representatives. Again, Lenin, a strong central state, would, as a proxy for society, control all of the means of production so that everyone got what they needed. Versus European Marxism, which believed that the people should elect a parliament which was their proxy for controlling the means of production and making sure everyone got what they needed. So, similar, but different. One's elected, one's not, right? And one is a strong centralized government, whereas the other one is a not strong decentralized government with elected officials. But the goal in both of these Leninist and European Marxisms was that the means of production were utilized in order to benefit the society. Okay, so he also Lenin believed that national borders were old school, man, that's so 19th century. And that all mankind would rise together in this formation of a new society. He called this international communism. And he argued that it was far, far more democratic than a representative democracy, because whereas international communism saw all of mankind collectively, the working class vis-a-vis the society, vis-a-vis the state, owning the means of production for themselves, he saw that as more democratic than a capitalist-controlled democracy where you just got told that you were being represented by your elected officials. Lenin argued that in a capitalist democracy, your elected officials, they don't really represent you. They're part of the bourgeoisie class. They're manipulating you for their own enrichment. And so are the capitalist landowners or the corporate CEOs. They're just manipulating the working class. You think you have control over things because you vote? Pfft, wrong. You're just getting used. That was Lenin's argument, okay? Now, in Sweden, he was running this newspaper, and he was working with a guy named Julius Martov, who was in a debate with Lenin about the interpretism of Marxist activism. Martov felt that every Marxist should be free to express their own interpretations of Marxism, to interpret it as they wanted and to voice their own opinions, as they all had this intellectual activism for this idea that was Marxism. Well, Lenin didn't. He thought that if you're part of a group of Marxist organizers, if you're part of a party of Marxists, that you just bow your head and the party speaks and you accept what the party says as the official interpretation of Marxism. Martov called that interpretation Leninism. Whereas he said, that's not true Marxism. Martov said he himself was a true Marxist because every man could think for themselves, and that this party, strong centralized party idea, that was Leninist. That was Lenin's idea. Also, this became a major rift in the Marxist movement. And the two had a vote about how are we going to organize ourselves. And the majority sided with Lenin. They were then called the majoritarians, and the Russian word for majoritarian is Bolshevik. All right. Anything else to say about Lenin? No. We can click next turn. I'm sorry. Golly, gee, oh, man. You make one misclick. I wish I could call her up and say, I'm sorry, that was a misclick. I apologize. I didn't need that. I need good relations with everybody right now. I don't want any kind of hoopla on my borders. I want to finish allying with all of these city-states, and to the degree that I can, I need to ally with city-states so that I can... Yes, I forgive you. Good grief. I'm not going to click wrong again. I need to be able to control the diplomatic agenda for the next 50 years. So I need the city-states on my side at this critical time. All right. We'll kill Barbs and march up here to check for Barbs and move up here and kill Barbs and blah, 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 blah. All right, now this caravan, let's take a look at our caravans. We've got them coming from Poltavka, Srubna, Samaria, Andronovo, and Tamatarcha. So I don't think... The only one here that's not sending to Moscow is Samaria. Let's... I don't know. How much money can I get out of this trade route? I could get 6 extra production if I send it to Moscow. Or I could get... Wow. 14 gold if I send it to Kiev. I'll send it to Kiev. Alright, we'll just talk this turn. 1905! So I was going to talk this turn about the serfs after their emancipation being turned into a working class and the dramatic change that was. Let's see, and how they hated their bosses. Oh yeah, so in 1905, there was a man of the people, somebody who felt the pain of this working class which was suffering in the factories. And this fellow was a priest by the name Father Gapon. He organized a petition for an end to the ongoing Russo-Japanese War and the introduction of universal suffrage, which is, I don't know if I need this unit over here because after all, Portugal is here, so I might bring him back. Universal suffrage is the right of everyone to vote. So he got this petition together, he got a bunch of signatories to it, and then he organized a march around his petition. He got 3,000 workers gathered together with him in St. Petersburg, and they marched on the Tsar's official residence. They were holding religious icons, they were singing hymns, they were singing patriotic songs, and when they got there, the police opened fire and killed a whole bunch of people. It's not exactly clear how many people died. If you ask, the people who were supporting the protesters, 4,000 people died, which is more than the number of people I thought he had with him. If you ask the official government records, 37 people died. If you ask, whatever, we don't know. But a lot of people died. And Nicholas II saw that the situation was a powder keg, that his own people were nearing revolt. They'd assassinated his father, they tried to assassinate him. Actually, no, they'd assassinated not his father. They'd assassinated Alexander II, they'd assassinated, basically, Alexander III, and he didn't want to be the third to get assassinated. And he knew that his people were groaning under the thumb of their oppressed life. So he put together a series of immediate reforms. Let's see if I can list them real quick. Everybody gets basic freedoms, and that was you got a right to not get your ass beat in the street. You've got a right to have a freedom of your own thoughts, so you can think for yourself. You can have freedom of speech, and you can have the freedom to assemble and associate with whoever you want. He organized the resurrection of the Duma so that the Duma could get together and have kind of like parliamentarian rights. People could vote, but your votes wouldn't actually elect anyone. It was just an expression of popular will. And that the Duma would be given, as the parliament, the ability to make laws. I might be I might be misstating some of these reforms, but those are the reforms he put on the table. Yeah, this is a really it's a real powder keg of a couple of years here. And we only have 9 more years. I'm going to quit this episode, but so much happens in them. Excuse me. Brazil's denounced Spain. Interesting. So we are centralizing production. If I got the wine, I'll give it to you. Do I have it? I do. You can have it. I'm a great leader. I know I'm awesome. This work on the ironworks here is my effort to centralize production and hammers in Moscow. You know, I think that the next trade route I get, I'm still not sure. I'm still so torn on whether or not I need more. Alrighty. So these guys, they can just chill out here forever. Come over here. There's a camp. I don't like this. Feel like I need to fall back and save my land ship. Ironic, I'm bringing artillery out here to deal with barbs. Okay. The next year, 1906. So, Tsar Nicholas II had made a bunch of nice-sounding reforms, but as I mentioned, the votes didn't actually elect anyone, and the autocracy immediately started to reassert itself. Police brutality skyrocketed in response to protests, and in response to that, there were more protests, so in response to that, there were more incidents of police brutality. So, the Russian society just started ramping up this series of nice this spiral, this escalating spiral of protests and police brutality. That takes us to 1907. We got a great writer. That's a dandy. And here we're going to, I guess we'll let this landship sleep for a little bit. Alright, Emily Dickinson. He doesn't look like an Emily. Emily, it's far too late in the game for me to create a great work. We're going to write a political treatise, which means that we're 2 turns from being able to pick another social policy. Alright, 1907. Tsar Nicholas II placed all of Russia under martial law, and everyone collectively came to the conclusion that these reforms were just an act, that Nicholas II really didn't have any intention of honoring them, and they were just something to buy time. The Duma, which was created just a few years earlier, was disbanded. So there's that on-again, off-again Duma. And that brings us to 1908. Are we in 1908 yet? I don't think so. Come on, next. So 1908. What do we got going on here? So I'm going to mention Stalin now. Of course, another guy who's... The threads, all these threads weave together in, like, right now. So Stalin is from Georgia. He's a boy who has grown up to be a young man at this point. He grew up in a nightmare of a home where he had a severely religious mother and a father who beat him like a redheaded stepchild. Let's see. So yeah, really great childhood, getting pretty much constantly beat by his dad. And he joins the Leninist movement. And what he does for the Leninists is basically thuggery. Nice. So many barbs. Much barbarity. I'll actually bring another landship down to deal with this mess. Look at this. It's like a war. And we can promote someone? What a dandy. Nice. And you've got your full turns. Nice. Wow. Yeah, a lot of barbs over here. And we killed a Portuguese spy. Korea and Portugal are friends. I don't think he'll die this turn. You'll sit there forever and watch the northern coast. And you will do likewise. Anyway, so yeah, Stalin was holding up banks and running protection rackets and stuff. I'm so sorry. Jeez, lady. So he was a thug. He was in the Leninist movement, but whereas Lenin was at the top of the movement, and he was the bookish guy who was writing papers and running a newspaper and coming up with ideas. Stalin was breaking kneecaps in the street for ransom money and stuff like that in order to send money up the stream of command to Lenin so Lenin could use it to further their policies. Stalin, because he was very charismatic, despite getting arrested several times, always got out of the gulags and always got back to his friends in the Leninist movement, and because of his great charisma and intelligence, rapidly climbed the ranks of Leninists. All right, policy. We are going to go, because I want New Deal, because it gives me +4 yield on great person improvements, and I've got a bunch of academies. I want that. Which means that I'm going to have to go through what are my options here? No, that's still a maybe. I don't know exactly how much science I would get out of that. And extra happiness would be great, but I don't really need it right now. So this is still an unknown quantity. I'm not really sure about scholasticism. Let me know if you think it's great, but I'm going to move for avant-garde for me to be able to get to where I want to go. Yeah, I think I don't really need the happiness right now. I do need great scientists. So avant-garde, and then I'll do New Deal, unless somebody tells me otherwise. I'll try to get this episode up as quickly as possible. Tamatarcha, we're not going to do any buildings except science buildings, and we have no science buildings that we can run here. Except, I guess I could get some science off of a factory and stuff like that. If I were to work the factory. Actually, that's not a half terrible idea. A factory or a bank is quicker, and I can get 2 science off a bank as well. I think that because I don't really care about production here, but gold can be useful in buying things, and I would also get happiness off banks. Yeah, this makes sense. I should build banks in places. And you probably have a research lab now, don't you? So we can take somebody off this crappy tile and put it on research. Super. Look at all these barbs. That's insane. Don't even know what to do with myself. Alright. Antwerp for the gold. Poor favor. 6 turns until the next election, which I don't have super strong feelings about what the outcomes of that election are. But nice that I got rid of their camp. And we'll fall back one. 1909, have I missed things? Okay, so the Ottoman Empire, as I've mentioned in several episodes, has been in a long state of decline. Now, the Ottoman Empire holds a lot of territory right over, let me show you. Oh, geez, don't start scrolling on me. Right here. Okay? This, I guess Bratislava, Bucharest, Riga, this area a lot of this area is controlled, basically the Balkans, okay? The Balkans is controlled, owned by the Ottoman Empire. But they've been falling apart. And recently they're withdrawing from Eastern Europe. And the Balkans, each individual little area is revolting and saying, we are the so-and-sos, this ethnic or cultural group or this linguistically defined group in the Balkans. We're our own people. We're no longer part of the Ottoman Empire. We have independence to decide our own future. And basically, Russia and... So you got the Austrians. So where's Germany? Let's zoom out a little bit here. So what, Germany's like right here, I guess. And Austria's right here. And Russia's over here. So Russia and Austria are taking turns doing land grabs on these little Balkan areas that revolt from the Ottomans. So that's 1909. Sometimes they make these land grabs in accordance with treaties. Sometimes they don't. Anyway, so in 1909, Bulgaria revolted from the Ottomans. And then the next day, unrelated or not, Austria-Hungary made an announcement that it was annexing Bosnia, which was Serbian territory. And Serbia had a fit about it, as one can expect. So let's see. Finally clearing out all these barbs up here. I bet there's a lot of them. What else? This unit got promoted. I guess that, let's be realistic. He's probably never going to fight in rough terrain. He's probably never going to get another promotion. Let's just take medic so he can help heal these people up. A mosque has been purchased in Tamatarcha. Sweet. We've got the World Congress coming up, and Samaria has finished its research lab, so it can go right onto a bank. It's already got a bank. It needs somebody on the research lab. So, shoot. This is going to be kind of hard to do. Let's take off this production someplace. Yeah, let's take it off production, put it on research. Okay, and we're starving now. Do I really care that I'm starving? I guess I could unlock that, lose another hammer. Yeah. Okay, so that city's stagnating, and that's just fine anyway. Oh yeah, and you want to build something. So you've already got a bank, and you've got a stock exchange, so I guess that there's nothing that we can do here. Oh, well, we could build a factory. We can get science out of it. We're not going to get science out of a factory in Samaria because we've got no spare people to allocate to it. Maybe we should do something like a garden. Do a garden. We'll do gardens everywhere. Gardens everywhere. Yeah, because they help with great people production. Yeah. Gardens everywhere. Srubna, you're going to do a garden next. How about that? Yo, where's a garden? You're not on a river. Screw you. Poltavka, you're on a river. Do a garden. After the space telescope. Okay. Great, he's going to embark and probably get killed someplace. You were previously going to Kiev, and now you're going to Bratislava. Do I still have all those trade routes going to Moscow? Yeah, I think so. I think that they've just been kind of organized now. Skip your turn. 1910. Anyway, yeah, Serbia's really pissed that Austria-Hungary has annexed Bosnia, which I guess Bosnia was Serbian territory. So that's why Serbia is pissed at Austria-Hungary. And Serbia is right about, I think it's right about here or something. All right, I'm an American. I don't know these maps. I don't even know where North Dakota is. All right. So let's see. 1910. Bulgaria, which declared its independence in the previous year. The annexation of Bosnia by Austria-Hungary and Serbia being upset about it set off a whole bunch of diplomatic wrangling that completely stymied everything that Europe was trying to do. I had no idea. How do we respond to all this? And jeez, I have to bring up artillery. This is insane, I tell you. So yeah, Europe is it's doing what Europe does, which is talk a lot and not be able to solve anything. Russia strongly sides with its best friends forever government in Serbia. In 1911, a really awesome Colt handgun was made, and revolts, occupations, annexations, and protests multiply all throughout the Balkans. This area started to be known as the powder keg of Europe. My golden age is over, and I need a new great person selection. So we're going to go with great scientist, because why else would we do rationalism? Ur is under attack, and I'm losing grip on Antwerp. I will deal with all of my pet city-states when the time is right, and not until 1912. We are getting close to being done with this episode, and I'm pretty tired, so I hope that it hasn't sucked. 1912. Bulgaria, Serbia, Montenegro, all of these places recently freed and made themselves independent from the Ottomans. They joined with Greece in a so-called Balkan League, and they declared war on the Ottoman Empire. In that war, they liberated a new part of land from the Ottomans called Albania. Meanwhile, the French military, increasingly concerned about Germany and its Austrian-Hungarian alliance, decided that the only way they could win a war with this German powerhouse is to get a plan together to strike Germany fast, to have everything all planned out ahead of time for
represented by the present
mobilization, so that all the plans are done. You know, all we need is activate wing attack plan R, and we know exactly who's going to move into what places and exactly what units are going to attack where in Germany, and we're going to move as fast as we can to strike as quickly as possible. This came to really bite them in the butt. Alrighty. Have I got enough units up here? Really, what am I doing anyway? I think I'll bring this landship back to Moscow and just let it sleep. Ormus, declaration from Egypt that it's protecting Bucharest. We can build something here. They can't build, but they just built the research lab, so let's get somebody on that. We don't have any spare citizens, so we will move somebody from kind of a tricky situation here. If I move somebody off of 3 food, is there any place with 2 food? No place with 2 food. I could take, that's a lot of lost production, but really right now I need science. Oh yeah, and production. So we can't do the garden. We could go with, we do have actually food to spare. So we got a bank and we don't have a stock exchange. Let's do a stock exchange. Then we can man that, get science, get happiness, get gold. Yeah, that's a good idea. And research, we're going to go with advanced ballistics so we can build the boosters and nuclear missiles. The nuclear missiles will ensure that no civilization goes to war with us in the final years of this game. Alrighty, 1913. Lenin has been meandering around Europe right now, gathering and agitating for communism. He elevates Stalin to one of the top spots in his party. And Bulgaria backstabs Serbia and Greece by attacking them. Remember, they just did a unified war against the Ottomans? Well, They backstabbed. They declared friendship with Serbia and Greece, and then they declared war on them. So they get the backstabber penalty. This further destabilizes all of the Balkans towards anarchy. In the German and Austrian-Hungarian militaries, they become concerned about France's military power, and they come to the conclusion that the only way that they could beat France is if they act rapidly and decisively. They come up with a plan, which I know the name of this plan. It's called the Schlieffen Plan. And when activated, it had pre-prescribed actions, who's going to mobilize where, who's going to attack where in France. All of this was pre-planned out. And basically, it was a big wing motion. They would have just a little bit of protection on their French border while they swung a huge army through Belgium into France. So they would wheel on France. That was the Schlieffen Plan. And again, it emphasized hitting fast and getting the work done ASAP. And once the order was given, everything was set in motion and everybody just went. You all know your duties. Okay, 1914. In England, I just kind of got to breeze by 1914. I should have paid more of an emphasis on World War II, but I said that was kind of the affairs of the continent. And I know the Battle of Britain. I really neglected covering the Battle of Britain and Britain's contribution to the war. So definitely a fallacy on my part. But in the case of World War I, I'm not going to make the same fallacy. And Russia is a huge, huge, huge actor in it. So we're going to go through 1914 in much more depth than we did in the English playthrough. If you haven't read The Guns of August, you should go do it. If you care at all about 1914 and World War I, it's a fascinating book. You will enjoy getting to meet you get to meet everybody in detail. I mean, you get to know Kaiser Wilhelm II, Tsar Nicholas II, the British king, I forget what his name was. You get to meet everybody in detail. So let's see here. We will wipe them out. Actually, we'll just organize like this a little bit. Let's go scouting. Sleep for a turn. I think that this unit can probably come back and chill in Novgorod. Alright, I'm going to stop right here. We're not going to go any further in this game. Oh, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to buy city-states because I won't remember it otherwise. And principally, I'm concerned with city-states that are on my border and or are under the control of Brazil. So let's look at the Brazilian city-states that I'm close to. I could put 1,000 gold in here and strip them of their thing. Now, Arabia, if I'm right, they're closer to me. So the two sets, if you look at two sets where one set is the city-states that are next to me and the city-states that are under Brazilian control, those are two different sets because Brazil's nowhere close here. These city-states are all owned by Arabia. I don't want to talk to you, do I? Arabia, where are you? They have gone freedom as well. So, who are they friends with and who are they at war with? They are allied with a bunch of city-states. They're friends with Korea, Portugal, Brazil. Yeah, so I'm thinking because they're friends with Brazil and they're freedom with Brazil that they're going to vote along with Brazil on a lot of different, on basically whatever comes up. So if they're 50% into the sphere of Brazil and 100% next to me, then it becomes more reasonable for me to buy city-states away from Brazilian control. Such as where? Such as Samarkand, whatever. First, let's make sure that there's no mercantile city-states that are, well, I've got enough happiness. I guess I don't care right now. So let's get Samarkand. Well, where's Antwerp? It's allied with nobody. It's nowhere. And yeah, so I think I'm going to go with Samarkand. So we need 8. Oh yeah, we only need 8 influence to get them. So let's put 500 there. So they're our ally now. And who else is in their sway? Riga? Riga's in their sway. We need 23 influence. We can get that. And last but not least, Byblos. We'll need 36. We can get that. So there's some city-states under our control. Alright, so that sets up the game for the next election. 1914. Here it is. Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand visits Bosnia. He visits the Bosnian capital, Sarajevo, and he was assassinated in the quote-unquote shot that rang out around the world. He was assassinated by a secret military force sent by Serbia. So Austria immediately saw the hand guiding these assassins as Serbia. Let's see. I gotta be careful that I get everything in order here, so I have to read my notes carefully. So Austria-Hungary delivers an ultimatum to Serbia, saying, here's like 6 or 7 different things, and you need to agree to all of them or else we're going to go to war with you. Austria-Hungary wrote these ultimatums, this list of demands, knowing that nobody could ever agree to them. They were written in such a way that Serbia could not agree to them. Therefore, Austria would get a chance. They would have a casus belli to go to war. So Serbia replies back saying, we agree to all of your demands except one. And as a result, Austria mobilizes and declares war on Serbia. You didn't meet our demands, we get to go to war with you. Russia, therefore, mobilizes and declares war against Austria because it wants to protect Serbia. Knowing that Germany was Austria's best friend forever, it also mobilized against Germany and demanded that Germany reply with, what are you going to do, Germany? Your best buddy is going to war against my best buddy, so I'm going to war against Austria. Are you going to go to war on Austria's behalf with us? Now at this point, it bears repeating that Kaiser Wilhelm II was in charge of Germany. He was Tsar Nicholas II's cousin. And he sent a personal request to his cousin saying, let's not do this. Let's just not do this. Let's not go to war. Tsar Nicholas refused to stand down. So then Germany sends demands to Russia. It actually sends 2 demands. One to Russia saying, you need to stand down or we will declare war with you. And then it also turns around, so it's looking east when it looks at Russia. Germany looks west to its eternal, most dangerous foe, France, and says, look, we're about to get into the shit with Russia. Are you going to take advantage of this opportunity and declare war on us or not? We need to know, are you going to be neutral or are you going to stay out of this? A reasonable demand that they answer. Just all the demand was, just tell us what you're going to do. Russia refused to stand down against Austria. So Germany issues the order to mobilize and declares war on Russia. Yes. So Russia refuses. Germany therefore declares war on Russia. France responds to Germany, but not clearly. France doesn't say, all right, look, we get it. You're going to war with someone else, and we pledge not to go to war with you. No, they didn't do that. They responded with this diplomatic, lawyerish gobbledygook. And they basically left everything up in gray areas, saying maybe, maybe not, maybe not, blah, 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 blah. What is the definition of is? And Germany, what are they going to make out of this? Although France does move its units on the French-Germany border 10 kilometers away from the border so that there's no accidental war between France and Germany. So they reply back with, well, maybe, maybe not. What's the definition of is? But they back off. All right? Germany, though, it gets this response of maybe we'll attack, maybe we won't. They read it like this. Well, maybe, maybe not. And this is not something that you can tolerate in statecraft. You need to know whether or not France is going to sneak attack you when you declare war on Austria. So, Germany's war plan for France was therefore activated. So the Schlieffen Plan goes into effect. The order is given, mobilize and attack France. So they declare war on France. And because Belgium is in the way of them wheeling through the north, Germany also therefore declares war on Belgium at the same time. At this point, after giving the order, there is, in the Guns of August is great because it goes through this hour by hour, like almost minute by minute. The Kaiser gives this fateful order. Mobilize, activate the Kaiser, or just basically activate the Kaiser plan, which is the mobilization and simultaneous attack of France. But then, so the runner runs out the room. Order received, Captain. Schlieffen Plan activated. Runs out of the room. The Kaiser looks to his general staff and says, I'm having second thoughts. This doesn't seem like a good idea. War on two fronts against Russia and France? And his general staff, all his generals, they all say, well, you already gave the order. Once the order is given, it cannot be stopped. And the Kaiser still has second thoughts. He's like, oh, geez. The afternoon turns into evening, the sun sets, and the Kaiser is just torturing over this decision. So he finally decides at night, I can't do this. We can't do this. This will end in disaster for the whole world. So he sends a runner to try to catch the runner who has already sent a telegram to some train station and, a dozen different people went in a dozen different directions from this train station, and a whole bunch of telegrams have been sent out, and it's too late. He can't issue the command to stop it now. Events are out of his control. They literally are out of his control. France, knowing that the Schlieffen Plan has been activated, and receiving the diplomatic cable that Germany has declared war on France, they activate their war plan against Germany, and they declare war on Germany. So now these two war plans, which both stress offense, 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 offense against one another, they both go at it. So the opening days, really spicy between the two. Okay, but not even the next day, Britain, seeing that their ally France is in a war with Germany, seeing that Germany has declared war on France and France has declared war on Germany, Britain enters the war saying, we declare war on Germany on the side of the French. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's 1914. That's World War I. That is how one of the most horrible wars in history started. As a chain reaction. I'm sure we all remember from high school or from elementary school that it was a chain reaction, but we probably don't remember the particulars. There they are laid out in detail. So thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm not going to go through the trench war. Probably going to gloss over the war to a certain degree and focus on Lenin and Stalin. So thank you very much for listening. Please click like and subscribe. Goodbye.